This video showcases how a Vikings team went from playing in the NFC Championship game one year to becoming the worst playoff team of the 1970s decade the next year. After watching, let me know in the comments if you agree. Vikings' record was 8-7-1 in 1978, and they allowed more points scored than they scored themselves. They committed the third most turnovers in the league with 51, an average of over 3 per game. Things got so bad that they waived 8-time All-Pro defensive tackle Alan Page after the 6th game. They still had Fran Tarkenton though, and he led the NFL in pass attempts, completions, yards, and interceptions with 32, 7 more than his previous high-water mark. And the Vikings still had sensational Chuck Foreman at running back. Iron Man Jim Marshall, age 40, was the defensive captain and spiritual leader of the team. On November 13, 1977, Fran Tarkenton had his best passing efficiency game of his career. He completed 17 of 18 passes for 195 yards and a touchdown. However, late in the third quarter, defensive end Gary Burley sacked Tarkenton and broke his right fibula, just above the ankle. Going into the 1978 season, Tarkenton was fully recovered from the injury, and hopes were high after losing 23-6 to the Cowboys in the 1977 NFC Championship game, a game in which Tarkenton did not play. Before I dissect some of the most disappointing and concerning 1978 regular season games, I want to mention that without the 38-year-old Fran Tarkenton at quarterback, the Vikings would have probably finished in the basement of the NFC Central Division. Although he only had the 12th best passer rating and the second lowest yards per completion, his uncanny play lifted the otherwise nondescript Vikings to a record that was not representative of their overall talent. While Fran was sacked 27 times in 1978, his 4.5% sack percentage was the lowest of his NFL career. This resulted primarily due to Tarkenton's affinity for the short passing game. Two of Tarkenton's 12 career pick sixes came in 1978. As mentioned earlier, Tarkenton's 32 interceptions led the NFL. Head coach Bud Grant stuck with his man, and Vikings backup quarterbacks only threw 20 passes during the entire season, including the 34-10 blowout loss to the Rams in the opening round of the playoffs. Running back Ricky Young caught 88 of Tarkenton's passes, or 25.5% of them. Young set the NFL record for most single-season receptions by a running back. He averaged an even 8 yards per catch and was acquired in late July from the Chargers in a trade for the rights to guard Ed White. At White's retirement, he held the all-time record for most games played by an offensive lineman with 241. Wide receiver Ahmad Rashad was second on the team and fourth in the NFL with 66 catches. His low 11.7 yards per catch was indicative of the Vikings' passing scheme. Chuck Foreman's 61 catches was the sixth highest in the NFL, but his grabs only netted him 6.5 yards on average. Wide receiver Sammy White's 53 catches were the fourth most on the team and the 12th most in the NFL. He was the team's deep threat, despite what his 14.0 yards per catch would imply. Tight end Bob Tucker's 47 catches was fifth best on the team and 15th best in the league. Again, his 11.5 yards per catch was a reflection of the conservative Viking passing attack. "1978 was Chuck Foreman's last good year. While his 749 rushing yards led the team, his 3.2 yards per carry was bad. His longest run of the season was only 21 yards. Ricky Young was second on the team with only 417 rushing yards, and his yards per carry was even worse than Foreman's, 3.1. The team's longest run from scrimmage was 22 yards by Brent McClanahan. His other 9 rushes netted him only 4 yards. The Vikings' 3.0 yards per carry was the worst in the NFL, and they had the least rushing attempts and rushing yards in the NFL. They were strictly a one-dimensional passing team. Left tackle Frank Myers started 11 games as a rookie, while right guard Wes Hamilton started 15 games as a third-year player. Charles Goodrum played left guard and was a 6-year veteran who played in his next to last season in 1978. After 7 straight All-Pro and Pro Bowl seasons, right tackle Ron Yeary didn't make either team in 1978. He was 32 years old and in clear decline, as was 38-year-old center Mick Tingelhoff, who at 235 pounds had a sizable weight disadvantage in every game. 1978 was his last NFL season. Head coach Bud Grant's loyalty to long-tenured veterans was a philosophy that resulted in positions that were manned by old, slow, and undersized players. By 1978, defensive end Jim Marshall was 41 years old and playing at 220 pounds. While he started all 16 games, he gave way to play of the Vikings' 1978 first-round draft choice, 6'5", 245-pound Randy Holloway. Marshall's best years were in the rearview mirror, yet Bud Grant trotted him out to start another 16 games at age 42 in 1979. Fellow defensive end Carl Eller started 7 games at age 36, and he was about finished too. Alan Page was age 32 and played defensive tackle at 218 pounds in 1978. Bud Grant released the former 9-time Pro Bowler on October 10th, and the following day the Bears claimed him on waivers. He had 11.5 sacks for the Bears in 10 games. Backup outside linebacker Wally Hilgenberg was age 36, as was backup free safety Paul Krause, who Bud Grant kept on the roster in order to break Emlyn Tunnell's all-time career interceptions record. Only he didn't break it because he failed to intercept any passes in 1978, so Bud Grant kept him around another year and he finally broke the record. Both cornerbacks were long in the tooth, too. Nate Wright was a 10-year veteran in 1978, and Bobby Bryant had 11 years' experience in 1978. Both of their NFL days were numbered. Here's 1978 footage that highlights the Vikings' weakness at stopping the run. Here's footage of their highly susceptible pass defense. Vikings' defensive line didn't strike fear into the hearts of enemy quarterbacks as in years past. Their 33 sacks ranked in the bottom third of team sacks in the NFL, and defensive tackle Doug Sutherland had 4 sacks, which was third best on the team. In Week 1, the Vikings were 6.5-point favorites against the Saints, who had only won 3 games in 1977. The Saints upset the Vikings 31-24. In Week 3 at home against the Buccaneers, the Vikings were 10-point favorites against a team that had only won 2 games in 1977. The Vikings lost 16-10. In Week 5 at Tampa Bay, the Vikings won, but it was a concerning victory because they allowed 283 passing yards to a team that only averaged 95 passing yards per game in the other 15 regular season games. In Week 6 at Seattle, the Vikings were a 5-point favorite to defeat the third-year team that had only won 5 games during the previous season. Seahawks quarterback Jim Zorn did an admirable Fran Tarkenton impersonation when he completed 17 of 28 passes for 256 yards and a touchdown, while he ran 5 times for 45 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 29-28 win. In Week 12 at home against the Southern California Chargers, the Vikings were 3.5-point favorites in snowy conditions that should have further favored the Vikings' winning chances. However, they couldn't make the most of the breaks that they caused and lost 13-7. With only 14 seconds remaining, Tarkenton hit a Madra shot for this score. This Week 13 game ended in a 10-10 overtime tie. The Vikings and Packers had identical 8-7-1 records, but the Vikings beat the Packers earlier in the season and captured the division crown. At LA in the divisional playoff round, the Rams made 25 first downs to the Vikings' 12, gained 409 yards to Minnesota's 244, and gained more rushing yards than any Minnesota opponent did in the regular season, an even 200. The Rams outscored the Vikings 24-0 in the second half and defeated them 34-10, all of which confirms my assertion that the Vikings are the weakest NFL playoff team of the 1970s.